Hello, everybody. If I could get you to take your seats or find one. We want to get started as quickly as possible because there's a live band starting in the other room in about half an hour. So hopefully the microphone and the doors being closed will not cause us a problem. So welcome to the book launch of Hello by Dave Carpenter and Theories of Everything by Dwayne Brenna. If you're wondering who I am, my name is Edward Willett and I am the publisher. I am the publisher of Shadowpaw Press, named after our black Siberian cat. Because Shadowpaw Press world headquarters consists entirely of me in a chair with a laptop and him somewhere else being absolutely no help whatsoever. Nevertheless, he gets his picture on every book because he's better looking than I am, for one thing. So that's Shadowpaw Press. I founded it in 2018 and now published quite a lot of books, much to my surprise, actually. And these are the two latest by Dave Carpenter and Dwayne Brenna. And a little bit later, I'll tell you more about some of the stuff that's coming up later this season from Shadowpaw Press. But what we're going to do is we're going to have some readings, and perhaps we'll have some questions and answers, or at least questions. You can order food, you can order drinks, whatever you like, from our lovely server over there. And yeah, that will be the evening. And there is a band. Oh, I got to turn down this music. There is a band, but I hope with the doors closed and the microphone will be okay. And for the authors, lean into the microphone. This doesn't have much pickup as soon as you get back here. So we'll start with
David Cameron Carpenter, BA,
yeah,
1962.
Serial number? I wanted to be sure that you were still going in that order. I will introduce David by the time-honored method of reading from the back of the book. Oh, that's the wrong section. That's the acknowledgments, which might also be interesting, but are not his biography. There we go. David Carpenter began his writing vocation as a critic and translator in Winnipeg and Toronto. Inspired by a reading by the Moose Jaw movement, Gary Hyland, Robert Curry, Lorna Crozier, and others in Saskatoon, he switched to writing his own work, which began to emerge in 1985. He is the author of 15 books of fiction and nonfiction and 1 book of poetry. His literary awards and honors include the Saskatchewan Book Awards 2010 Book of the Year for A Hunter's Confession, the Kloppenberg Prize for Literary Excellence in 2015, the Codes Burt Award out of Toronto for the education of Augie Marasti in 2016, and most recently the High Plains Creative Nonfiction Award from Billings, Montana for I Never Met a Rattlesnake I Didn't Like. As well as a recognition for his writing, he was awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Saskatchewan in 2018, and he lives and writes in Saskatoon, but he is with us now, David Carpenter.
I'm a little short for this microphone. Is there somebody with a good left hand?
How's that?
Very good. Excellent. Thank you, Ed. Ed will go down as he'll be remembered as a writer and a publisher and one of the great multitaskers in the universe, as far as I'm concerned. And I want to thank him for taking a chance on me and Dwayne. I'd like to dedicate this reading to Bruce Rice, who has helped me in many ways along the way. Hi, Bruce. The story's called Frailing. I'm not going to read the whole story, but I will test your patience for quite a while. The first time you really listened to one was when you were 17, working in the mountains. It was too early in the decade to be a hippie, probably too late to be a beatnik. You might have become a bohemian, but wasn't that for gypsies? Why work up there? Your father said. You won't even earn your tuition. Your answer to your father was inspired. I need to learn how to get out and meet the public. You were a parking lot attendant on the night shift at the Chateau Lake Louise, and out in the world, summer was on the way. But up at the chateau, it was barely spring. The snow was banked high along the roads and paths, and the big melt had just begun. Avalanches boomed from the high slopes, and on that shift, the snow and the glaciers glimmered beneath a bright moon. The air, the alpine air, was fragrant with all things coniferous. As the bold metallic notes descended from the hillside residence, you were struck with a melody that had no name. A few years later, the word turned out to be enchantment. But in those half-formed days when you were trying to grow a mustache, such highfalutin words waited in line outside the compound of your bewildered brain. Brilliant notes tumbled in a minor key down the mountainside. You knew the song well enough to put words to this bright and mournful clatter. Bump-a-titty, bump-a-titty slide, and a bump-a-titty, bump-a-titty hammer on the string. The ballad, there howled and sung, was recounted by a sad fellow from East Virginia. To North Carolina he did go. There he met the fairest lady, whose name and age he did not know. Call this a cheap epiphany brought on by an overdose of Dylan Thomas and Pete Seeger. You hurried past your kiosk and out the gate of your parking lot, and you climbed up the path to the hillside residence, where a young man in kitchen whites sat on a log in a pale slash of moonlight. You thought you recognized him. Yes, it was Beauchemin, the dishwasher from Sept-Îles. Beauchemin, the craggy-faced heartthrob. The clocks in the chateau ground to a halt. Your watch stopped ticking. Big Ben took a long coffee break. You wondered how many of the hundreds of waitresses and chambermaids might yearn to be close to Beauchemin, just to hear him play. One roll from a nail on his right hand, and how could they help themselves? You shuffled down the path to your parking lot. You checked the license plates against the ones on your clipboard. The raging moon was deflated now, fading behind the peaks, and the clustering stars burst forth to reaffirm their mythic patterns. Big Dipper, Great Bear, Orion the Hunter, and soon to be discovered, Monsieur Banjo. You had to make sure that no one was trying to park for free. You returned to your kiosk, closed the door, turned on the heater, completed your room charges, leaned back in your chair. This could not possibly be your destiny. You told yourself to be like Beauchemin. That was your destiny. There came a rumble from an avalanche adjacent to the Victoria Glacier, a validating thunderous roar, and you knew then that you were right. Your father, of course, might have disputed it. A few days later, Beauchemin invited you to hold his banjo in your lap. He made you rest the thumb on your right hand on the drone string, which was attached to a peg at the side of the neck, 7 or 8 inches down from the 4 other pegs. He had you rest your index and middle finger on the bottom 2 strings. Hit those strings, one after each. Hit them, strike those strings like you're knocking on a door. Beauchemin had been a hockey star in his hometown, which gave him a certain cachet among the university students. His hands looked too big for banjory. He struck the lowest string of his banjo, as instructed, like knocking on a door, and it responded with a pure, clear note. You made it do that. Now keep your damn thumb on a drone string like I tell you. You knock on the door, then you lift your thumb. Beauchemin took his banjo from your lap and mechanically followed his own instructions. His large, fretting hand hardly seemed to move. The middle finger of his left hand went slowly up the neck and back down again. He didn't even look at his hands. Then in slow motion he trailed the first few lines of Ojo Clark. Like so. In a final flourish, Beauchemin rolled his fingers over the strings, flamenco style, and a G chord burst forth. That slowly faded. All the way back to the kiosk, your diaphragm vibrated like the skin on the head of a banjo. Natasha worked in the camera shop down in Banff, an hour's drive away. Her friend Chrissy at the Chateau Lake Louise travel desk needed someone to drive Natasha from Lake Louise to Banff. Chrissy offered you the keys to her tiny Nash Metropolitan, which necessitated a delicious proximity between you and her friend. Natasha, of the blue-black hair and dark eyes. When she laughed, her eyes disappeared behind the lashes and slowly reappeared to gaze in dismay at the fallen world. Meekly, the tiny Nash puttered downhill from the opulent chateau to the cheap and cozy Deer Lodge, a distance of a few hundred yards. In that time, Natasha took on the shape of all your moon-eyed yearning. Do you like the Kingston Trio? Yeah, she said she liked the Kingston Trio. They're doing a concert in Calgary. Are you kidding me? She said. Nope. You want to go? Natasha sat hunched beside you. Her left arm rested against your right arm. As you gripped the wheel, your elbows were pressed into your ribs to minimize the encroachment and to negate any assumption that you might be enjoying this enforced melding of bodies. Could there be, you wondered, such a thing as romantic osmosis, where unutterable thoughts came and went through the skin of your beloved? Natasha's perfume rivaled the scent of the larches and pines along the road. It drifted into your nostrils like an emissary from a kingdom of merciless delight. With me, you added for clarity. Natasha said, yes, I'd love to go. 5 words, but the first one did the work. It ushered a veritable Chinook into the long winter of your boyhood. How could Natasha have known that she was calling you out from the place where Monsieur Banjo was dreaming his future? Neighborhoods had edges. Hedges and ledges had edges. Even amoebas have edges. You had no edges. In the darkened football stadium, in the midst of a reflection on politics, Natasha peered intently at you as if to locate just one measly edge. I'm not sure, she said, but I might have conservative leanings, and yet I'd never vote conservative. Right. I mean, they don't even like labor unions. Yeah. They want to cut down on federal programs, you know, support for disadvantaged families and support for international aid. But if people voted liberal, and I'm not sure I'm a liberal either, how could we afford all those good programs? Yeah, exactly. They get all their ideas from the CCF, but I wouldn't vote for the CCF because I'm not a socialist, right? You got a point there. I don't know, she sighed. Such acute sadness. She was being a tad ironic, of course, but you loved how she said that. Such acute sadness. Even then, you had a weakness for lofty diction, other people's lofty diction. You had yet to acquire some of your own. You were rescued from the weight of these speculations when the applause went up for 3 college boys and an old bass player. They jogged into the spotlight in their short-sleeved, button-down shirts. The short one carried the bongos. The one with the lounge singer smile hoisted a guitar. The tall one with the brush cut carried a banjo with a long neck. They sang "Yonder Stands Little Maggie." The Maggie in question was too wild and dissolute to appreciate the tender feelings of the singers, who affirmed that flowers was made for bloomin' and the sun was made to shine. And this was the kicker. Pretty girls was made for boys to love, surely Maggie was made to be mine. A mournful song, but the three college boys sang it happy. They sang everything happy, and you were happy, and Natasha was happy, because it was the Kingston Trio, and the magic was in the air. You wondered which one Natasha would like best. If she liked the short one with the bongos, you might forgive her. But if she favored the guitar player with the libidinous smile, you might never see her again. The short guy, she whispered, if I had to choose. You had, of course, given your vote to the tall guy with the brush cut. The short guy makes everyone laugh. What do you like about the tall guy? He frails the banjo, you ninny. A glittering long-necked Vega 5-string resonator-free, bright-toned equivalent to the cosmic lyre, the biblical harp. You said none of these words. Instead, you said, you know, just the way he plays, banjo. Back to Banff then, to Natasha's front steps. Perhaps out of exasperation or sympathy for your halting conversation, Natasha let you kiss her goodbye. Not exactly a rite of passage, but it felt as though beyond Natasha's soft lips, the door to that misty world that inspired songs of yearning was open for a glimpse. You returned Chrissy's keys and said, "You never told me she was brainy." Chrissy burst out laughing, not the bright tinkle of girlish laughter you had expected, but a great snot-inducing horse laugh that threatened to dislodge her from the stool. Chrissy Smith. She was a Brewster transportation agent for the summer, which necessitated the standard issue blue blazer, knee-length gray skirt, and heels. She had a nicely shaped nose, freckles, and a great mane of dark brown hair, and she spoke with a slight lisp. You referred to her as Chrissy Smith Esquire, and the name took hold. She liked it because she had never before had a nickname. You had never had a sister, but Chrissy seemed somehow up for the job. If you are enchantment's plaything, you sometimes need a sister to clue you in. Read the book, she advised. Read Madame Bovary before you ask her out again. That would take too long. What about Dylan Thomas? Natasha isn't the poetry type. Here's a shorter one. The writer emerging from her handbag had an Irish name, but he was apparently from a rural community in Georgia. What's so good about this guy? He's not a guy, said Chrissy. Just read it. In the lives of brooding artists, there comes a moment of grace in which they are enabled to pursue their vision. The wealthy aunt, the enthusiastic patron, the sharp-eyed editor manning the slush pile. Your moment of grace came early in the summer of the evening shift, when the chateau courtyard had gone quiet. The call had come to your kiosk from the night bellman, who told you to bring up Mr. Ben Dixon's car. Blue Plymouth, far end of the lot. You took your time going for the car. You didn't want to give the keys to the bellman because he might claim your tip. The owner of the Plymouth was a talkative fellow with a sideways lisp. He was from Fort Wayne. He told you that he liked Canada. Lots of friendly people, he said. Lots of space for a fellow to spread out. You had been hoping for an American who was conversant with the stories of Flannery O'Connor, but clearly Mr. Ben Dixon was not that person. Say, I need to hire a fellow to do some work for me. After hours sort of thing. Cash under the table. I'll make it work. I'll make it worth your while. Mr. Ben Dixon had a red complexion like raw hamburger with a network of tiny varicose veins around his neck and throat. He was gut-hung like a prize bass, perpetually exhausted and sweating, as though life itself was an uphill workout. Regularly, he mopped his face with a wrinkled handkerchief. You liked him from the start. You liked the way he came right to the point, not yet one of your strong suits. And you liked the way he treated you as an adult. First off, he said, I need a fellow who can drive my vehicle down to Calvary and meet my old auntie at the airport. You mean Calgary? That's the one. Your heart hiccuped joyfully. Halfway to Calgary was Banff and Natasha's camera shop. Mr. Ben Dixon told you to make up a sign with his auntie's name on it and to hold it for her to see. Take her anywhere she wants to go in Calvary. You told him your name, shook hands with the man, and he handed you 10 American sawbucks fresh from a bank. They were a dull shade of green on white, and they had an image of Thomas Jefferson on the front. You had heard that the Americans were good tippers, but a tip this extravagant was beyond your greediest fancies. On the morning of your day off, Mr. Ben Dixon asked you to drive somewhere and change his plates for him. Got these Alberta, Canada plates, so I can do business in these parts. All legal and such. Oh, and when you've done the plates for me, could you wash my Plymouth? Much obliged, son. You carried out these chores, and then he goes down to meet the old auntie. She was probably younger than your mother. She wore a peach-colored summer suit, high heels, cat's-eye sunglasses. Her lipstick and nails were reddish purple. She looked Hollywood classy, like Rosalind Russell. No need for you to hang around, she said, in a remarkably low and worldly voice, a cigarettes and whiskey voice. Just drop me off at the Stockman's Hotel and I'll be fine. You drove the Plymouth to a cluttered street in a tough part of Calgary. She didn't seem to notice. Just give this to Mr. Ben Dixon, would you, honey? She handed you a nicely wrapped container somewhat larger than a shoebox. That man is so helpless. He never thinks to pack enough socks and underwear. You took Natasha to coffee in Banff for some cautious flirting. Then, with the sad and wistful sound of her voice in your ears, you drove north to Lake Louise. You delivered the package to Mr. Ben Dixon at Chateau Lake Louise, and on your day off, the following week, you ran some errands for him down in Banff. You had become his courier, and there was little time to linger with Natasha. There were manila envelopes sealed with Scotch tape to deliver, bottles of liquor in ornate boxes, a locked suitcase full of laundry. For these errands, he rewarded you with another stack of pens. By the end of July, you had 600 American dollars, which you carried in a wad in your pants pocket. Mr. Ben Dixon announced that he would soon be pursuing business opportunities in Saskatchewan, and would you run one more errand in Calvary. You had been observing things about your American friend. The nicely wrapped container from his auntie had been suspiciously heavy for socks and underwear. The manila envelopes you delivered could easily have been mailed. The Alberta license plates that you had bolted onto the blue Plymouth had been pebbled and bent. These observations went straight to the back burner, where you stored equally useless things, like how to approach a quadratic equation. Because you were thinking about Calgary and that burgeoning wad of American money in your pocket. Popeye had his spinach, Mighty Mouse had the cheese, and you would have the banjo. This last job in Calgary involved another well-wrapped cardboard container, lighter than the first one. After delivery, you waited down in the car while Mr. Ben Dixon's auntie freshened up. Then you drove her to see the Trotters and Pacers at Stampede Park. She claimed to have a soft spot for horses. Drop her there, get lost, then pick her up. Her name was Desiree Fox. I might even place it better too, she said. I could stick around. Oh no, said Desiree mysteriously. I might be meeting some people. She drew from her purse an unruly wad of American currency, peeled off a couple of tens and handed them to you with a smile. You marveled once more at the generosity of American tipping. Hey, Mrs. Fox, thanks a lot. Please, call me Desiree. You make me sound like an old bag. Now, buy yourself a nice souvenir of Calgary and pick me up at 6. In the meantime, I'm going to check out those trotters. You drove the Plymouth straight to a music store downtown. It was dimly lit, and a ceiling fan rotated just enough to stir the soupy air. The owner wore shades and reeked of booze and taciturnity. The morning trade must have been slow, or maybe it was always that way. One of his few customers was hunkered on a footstool with a guitar, trying to pick the notes to Tom Dooley. There were 2 levels to the store and a darkened basement. The main floor featured acoustic guitars, fiddles, drums, ukuleles, mouth organs, and sheet music. The upper story glittered with electric guitars and mandolins. The banjos, you discovered, were all in the basement with a couple of old pianos. In a dark corner, where several banjos dangled from a wooden beam like prisoners from a scaffold, there was a poster of Mark Twain in a white jacket and bow tie, with some words beneath the photograph. When you want genuine music, music that will come right home to you like a bad quarter, suffuse your system like strychnine whiskey, go right through you like Rendreth's pills, ramify your whole constitution like the measles, and break out on your hide like the pin-feathered pimples on a pickled goose. When you want all this, just smash your piano and invoke the glory-beaming banjo. Good advice. On the other side of the hanging banjos was an old poster for the Christie Minstrels. I'll skip a little bit. When you stood in the center of the gloomy basement, you felt the power of a magnetic field that pulled you in several directions. You had come upon the emporium of your dreams, the instruments with their unearthly magic, consigned like heretics to the catacombs. So he's caught by a green rhinestone that kind of winks at him. He sees his banjos. Pretty fascinating. Which one catches your eye, son? This one. The owner was still wearing his shades. You had not heard him descend the stairs. He shuffled over to the far wall, where you were peering dubiously with a mixture of fascination and moral disapproval. You a college boy picker? He said with a note of contempt. I just want to play the banjo. Pick it up. It had a beaded strap that seemed to replicate the pattern on the back of a Gila monster. You did not approve of rhinestones or flashy metal, and you had no love for Gila monsters, but with the strap in place over your shoulder, feeling the full weight of the instrument, you felt a subtle transformation coming on. You were toting the Desiree Fox of all banjos. What do you mean, college boy picker? They don't care about where the songs come from. They try to play 18 notes per second instead of learning how to play pretty. Where did you get all these? Oil guy from Oklahoma. Collected banjos and cars. He said he had to focus on one or the other, so I got the banjos. Tough, oh yeah. So he invites him to strum it. You brushed the strings with your ring finger, and a quintet of bright notes answered you like Vivaldi's harpsichord. Wait till Beauchemin heard this baby ring. It's already tuned, you observed. They're all tuned. Why are they in the basement? Oh, someday I'll bring them up when I think the world's ready for these babies, but right now, The owner paused to glance up the stairwell, and he started yelling, "Right now I sell $20 guitars and plastic picks to college boy pickers who drool over the Kingston fucking trio." The store owner said these words with just a trace of pity. How much? $900 with the case? Not a penny less. The store owner glared at you. He sported an overgrown black goatee. His shades seemed to magnify his every sardonic gesture. Okay, what? Can he even play this thing? All I got is American money. This should be a problem? You counted out 90 bills from the wad in your pocket. This took some time. You had never imagined handing over this much money to anybody. It made you feel lost and many years older. The owner placed the instrument into a sturdy case lined with purple velvet, tossed in some reading material, and fastened the brass couplings. He'd followed him up the stairs and past the young man on the footstool, still earnestly refining his craft. I think I'll stop there. Thanks very much.
Thank you, David. Would have been highly appropriate if they were playing banjo music out there. Or a Kingston Trio cover, maybe. I hope you can hear all right with the microphone still. I could hear over there, so I hope you can hear back there. I'll make sure, Dwayne, make sure you lean into the microphone when you get up there. Next, we will have Dwayne Brenna reading from his short fiction collection, Theories of Everything. And again, I will tell you about Dwayne by what he told me about himself for the back of the book. Dwayne Brenna is the award-winning author of several books of humor, poetry, and fiction. Coteau Books published his popular series of humorous vignettes entitled Eddie Gustafson's Guide to Christmas in 2000. His two books of poetry, Stealing Home and Give My Love to Rose, were published by Hagels Press in 2012 and 2015, respectively. Stealing Home, a poetic celebration of the game of baseball, was subsequently shortlisted for several Saskatchewan Book Awards, including the University of Regina Book of the Year Award. His first novel, New Albion, about a laudanum-addicted playwright struggling to survive in London's East End during the winter of 1850-51, was published by Coteau Books in autumn 2016. New Albion won the 2017 Muslims for Peace and Justice Fiction Award at the Saskatchewan Book Awards. It was also one of 3 English-language novels shortlisted for the prestigious M.M. Bennett's Award for Historical Fiction. His baseball novel, Long Way Home, was published by Carpenter Press in 2022, and his theater history text, Nights That Shook the Stage, McFarland Books, came out in the spring of 2023. His short stories and poems have been published in an array of journals, including Grain, Nine, Spitball, the Antigonist Review, Intima, and the Cold Mountain Review. I think I'm doing really well on this slide. Dwayne.
Well, thanks, Ed. I want to thank Ed for publishing Dave and my book. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Valerie, for inviting your 20 best friends to come. But thanks to everybody for showing up tonight. Like Dave, I'm going to read a story about music and musicians. Dave and I don't know if you know, we spent some time together at an artist's colony in Rabun County, Georgia. And if you don't know where Rabun County, Georgia is, that's the place where they filmed the movie Deliverance. So, and I was thinking about it. I was thinking, being on a book launch tour with Dave is a little like being in the movie Deliverance. It's all fun and games until the banjo comes out. This story is called Savage God. There they are, these 2 aged hippies, skin the color of seashells bleached by salt and sun. One of them is pushing a wheelchair, leaning his skinny frame on it so that he won't fall over. The other guy is in the wheelchair, 3 spliffs short of a brain cell, drooling and mumbling out directions. They could be twins. Their long hairs with tinder ponytails, identical black leather trousers and vests, both of them wearing those sunglasses that look like welder's goggles, the leather casings clawed in tight around their eyes. Good thing it's nearly dusk or they might spontaneously combust. Rick and I are coming out of a seafood place near the Inner Harbor. We're in town to watch a couple of hip-hop acts. Same old, same old. Rick turns to me and says, "You know who that is, don't you?" "Should I?" "Yeah, you should," he says. "That's Ramsay Baudelaire, the guy in the wheelchair." Rick looks at me like I'm a fool. "The one who's still upright," he says, very dull. I'm old enough to have listened to Baudelaire in the 60s. He wore whiteface and devil's makeup, 3 inches thick, for all of his concerts and album covers. You never saw a photo of him unless he was wearing makeup. "How do you know?" I asked. "It's common knowledge in these parts," Rick tells me. He's clearly delighted that his knowledge of ancient rock surpasses mine. He lives just around the corner at the Juan de Fuca. "The Ramsay Baudelaire," I say, as in Ramsay Baudelaire and the Flowers of Evil. "The one and only," he says. "Not up to much anymore, though." The two codgers stop on the sidewalk nearby, but I don't think they notice us. Ramsay produces a white handkerchief from his leather trousers, blows the nose of the guy in the wheelchair. I get a closer look at the two of them. Ramsay's got fingers about a foot long. No wonder he was the best axeman of his era. The face of the guy in the wheelchair is deformed and his growl is surly. It's clear that Ramsay likes the guy, though, or he wouldn't be digging loogies out of the drooler's nose. Ramsay grins, and his teeth are as yellow as an old horse's. "Do you know who I am?" he asks his buddy in the wheelchair. The drooling guy's face contorts into a mask of anger. "Your name," the man growls, "is damned if I know." By the way, I should have told you this. There's a few trigger warnings in this story. Some swear words, because that's the way rock and rollers sometimes talk. There's sex in an elevator. So if those things trigger you, then maybe time to go. Ramsay stuffs the snotty handkerchief into his pocket. He wheels his buddy down to the walk light. When the light changes, he edges the wheelchair gently over the curb, and the two men disappear around the corner. "Well, who's the guy in the wheelchair?" I asked. "Now that's a conundrum," Rick says. "Some say he's Ramsay's brother, some say he's an old bandmate, some say they used to be lovers. No one knows for sure. Man, I used to listen to those guys every night when I was 12 years old. My 45 of Cinera got so scratched and dented from overuse that the only way I could enjoy it was to melt it down and sniff the acetone. Somehow the image of those two aging rockers sticks with me for the rest of a month and a half. I can't shake it. I'm intrigued by the enigma of it and also by the romance. The way Ramsay wheeled his buddy around made me think that the promises of the 1960s had been kept. Hippies were still hippies and not the businessmen that most of them later became. And rockers like Ramsay were still brothers in arms, like they said they would always be. The image haunts me, especially where I work. On a cold November day, when I've got little else to do, I find myself at the computer, Googling Ramsay Baudelaire. Internationally famous rock guitarist born in Vancouver, Canada in 1947, Wikipedia tells me. Best known for his debut album, The Sacred and the Profane. I read to my surprise that Ramsay's real name is Robert E. Cummins, and that he had a pronounced stutter as a child. I already knew that he suffered a stroke in Paris when he was in his mid-40s after a binge of heavy drinking and drug use, and that his band, The Flowers of Evil, broke up shortly after that. Wikipedia doesn't say much about his life from then on. There's a grainy photograph of Ramsey in concert at the top of the page. Sure doesn't look much like Ramsey, not the Ramsey I saw at the Inner Harbor. But what did I expect? Bob Dylan doesn't look much like Bob Dylan anymore. I talked to Rick about the possibility of bringing Ramsey into the studio. He says I'm out of touch. You saw the guy, Ken. He's one log short of a log roll. It didn't look so bad, I said. Those old rockers might forget their own address, but they never forget how to play. Rick accuses me of wanting to reclaim my lost youth. I'm not going to pay for your delusions, he tells me. You can rent the studio from me if you're that obsessed with the guy. Early one morning in December, I dialed the number for the front desk at the Juan de Fuca and speak to the desk clerk. Can you put me through to Ramsey Baudelaire's room, please? The desk clerk has a nasal twang that could loosen your fillings. I'm afraid, sir, that nobody by that name is registered at this hotel. I have to think fast. What did Wikipedia say his name was? Robert. I blurt Robert into the phone, and then I remember the rest of it. Robert Cummins, is he staying there? Oh, Bob, she twangs. He's in one of our suites. I'll put you through. I hear the sounds of somebody fumbling with a telephone, and then I'm patched through to Ramsey's room. His phone rings about 100 times. Finally, as if he's been playing a waiting game and tired of it, Ramsey picks up. What? He says in a voice that's far away, maybe somewhere back in Mariposa. Sounds a little like Dylan and a little like a space cadet. If marijuana could talk, it would have a voice like Ramsey Baudelaire's. I pause for a second. What do I call him, Bob or Ramsey? I decide that it's more respectful to address him by his stage name. I know how rock stars feel about that sort of thing. Is this Ramsey? There's another pause. A beluga could swim through as Ramsey summons up the wherewithal to answer. Has he been toking this early in the morning? Of course he has. Am I speaking to Mr. Ramsey Baudelaire? I ask quickly, in case he decides to hang up. Yeah, man, that's what they call me, he says, sounding curiously sunny. I just wanted to introduce myself. I say, my name is Ken Graham. I'm a sound engineer at AMI Studios in Vancouver. My mouth is motoring along like Maybelline at the top of the hill. Is this like one of those syndicated robocalls, Ramsey says? Because man, I gave at the office, if you know what I mean. He's a little slow on the uptake. His conversation is littered with likes and mans, but no sign of a stutter so far. I expected a stutter, even just a slight vestige of the one that tainted his childhood, and I'm a little disappointed when I don't hear one. Maybe he overcame it in his high school years, or maybe the stroke reconfigured his brain and his stutter was gone. This isn't a telemarketing call, I say. I just want to set up a meeting with you. He processes this. Who the hell is this, really? I work at a studio in Vancouver, I blurt into the phone. I wanted to talk to you about recording some of your songs. I'd be happy to take the ferry across. We could meet right there at the Juan de Fuca in the pub or somewhere. I'm always up for a beer, he says. So is Everett. Maybe next Saturday, I say. I could take the late ferry. I'd be there by 2 in the afternoon. There's no response. I hear him breathe into the phone for about a minute. Then he hangs up. The Juan de Fuca Inn is a neat little affair on a back street behind Beacon Hill Park. It's less costly than most of the hotels 2 blocks down the inner harbor, and it attracts fewer tourists. Like many hotels in Victoria, its interior attempts to revive some Canadian notion of what Britain used to be, all oak walls and brass ceilings. I'm sitting at one of the tables in the attached pub at 1:45, nursing a cup of coffee. At 3, I go to the front desk and dial Ramsey's room. The phone rings interminably, and then Ramsey picks up. "Mr. Baudelaire," I say into the phone. "It's Ken Graham." "Who?" "We were supposed to meet in the pub downstairs an hour ago." "Ah, shithouse mouse," he says hoarsely. "Well, we'll be there in a heartbeat, man." At 3:30, Ramsey strolls in, rocking the same leather trousers and vest he had on last summer. His head is covered with a bandana, the way bikers wear bandanas before they put on their helmets. And he's still accessorizing with the welder's goggles. He's pushing his buddy, who's also decked out in leathers and a bandana and welder's goggles, in the wheelchair. I wave from my table and they approach. "Mr. Baudelaire," I say, "it's good to meet you finally." "Yeah, man. Likewise," he says, offering me an unsteady high five. He jerks a thumb at the guy in the wheelchair. "This is my buddy, Everett. He goes with me everywhere." "Pleased to meet you, Everett," I say. Everett looks away. "Everett, he doesn't talk to strangers," Ramsey says. "I do his talking for him." After the beer arrives and everyone's comfortable, I open up the conversation. "Do you still play?" You mean the guitar?" Ramsey drawls it with a sidelong look at his companion. Yeah, man, I play every day. Use it or lose it, man. Know what I mean? Takes a nervous drink. Everett, meanwhile, chugs his beer and it dribbles down his chin. "I think I mentioned before that I'm a sound engineer at AMI," I tell him. "I'd like to come in and cut a demo of Cinera." "A demo?" Ramsey asks, as if he's not quite sure what a demo is. "Yeah, a re-recording of the song, only this time with all the bells and whistles that the 21st century can afford." He looks down into his beer glass for the reply that is percolating in the yellow frothy soup. "Don't know," he growls, looking like the hull of an ancient ship that's just been recovered from the bottom of the Florencia Bay. I jump in again. "I didn't mean to scare you," I say. The bells and whistles are your choice. You'll have complete control, complete artistic control, but it'll be tidier than before. Tidier than anything you could have produced in, when was it, 1968? He glances at Everett, and Everett stares off into the distance as though the men's washroom sign is of vital importance for him. "It's been a long time," Ramsey says, "and I don't have a band anymore." "I'll bring the best session players in Vancouver," I assure him, taking a sip of my coffee and trying to be nonchalant. "What's the worst that could happen? We fall on our faces and the demo never sees the light of day." "I'll give it some thought," he says. I realize now that I'm coming on way too strong with the demo idea, and I decide to backtrack. "I'm your biggest fan," I tell him. "I lost my virginity in the backseat of a Galaxy 500 as the orphan's New Year's gifts played on the 8-track. Ramsey snickers into his beer glass. "Goddamn, 8-tracks had good sound quality. My girlfriend thought so. I'm glad we could be of assistance." He shoots Everett an alcoholic leer. "Aren't we, Everett?" "Piss off," Everett says, looking down at the soiled hardwood. It's amazing how much these two guys look alike, even though one side of Everett's face is slumped and immobile. I guess people start to look like one another after they've lived together for a long time. Is it true that you once nailed a Playboy bunny in an elevator in Chicago? I asked. I can't remember, man. That would be wrong on so many levels. He wheezes and chortles at his own joke and drinks some beer to punctuate it. Everett looks stone-faced at the washroom door. Ramsey seems to enjoy talking about the past, even the parts he doesn't remember, so I tilt the conversation in that direction. He glories in his salmon fishing expedition with Jethro Tull, remembering that Jethro was a great musician, but a better fisherman. He tells a story about accidentally shooting his own drummer in the leg with an illegal handgun in a hotel room in Santa Monica. Charges were pressed, later dropped. He vaguely remembers a party in Andy Warhol's apartment. That goddamn Scottish soup can connoisseur, Ramsey calls him. Everett turns to him and shouts, "Asshole!" at the top of his lungs. The entire pub is looking at us. Everett quaffs the rest of his beer and slams his glass down on the table with a thud. Even Ramsey realizes that this is a bit much, and we talk in whispers for a while. All the stories Ramsey tells are public knowledge. Some of them even appear in Wikipedia. But Ramsey loves telling them, so I listen. We talk into the early evening until the waitress brings the bill. Such a pleasure meeting you, I say to Ramsey. Please promise that you'll consider recording with me at AMI. I hand him my card. You can call me in this number. He peers at the card through his welder's goggles. Ken Graham. He reads as if he's never heard my name before. You a businessman, Ken? Just a sound engineer, I tell him, and a fan of your music. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
And thanks, Dwayne. I think if you, instead of doing questions and answers, maybe people just talk to you, because it's coming up at 8 o'clock, and it's probably, you're welcome to stay as long as you want, but I don't want to force you to stay if it's getting, you need to go somewhere. So Dwayne and Dave will be signing books, and you can ask them anything you would like. That's assuming you buy books, which you can do right over here. And I just wanted to let you know a little bit more about what's coming up on Shadowpaw Press's side. Tomorrow I'm releasing another collection of short fiction. This is an anthology called Shapers of Worlds Volume 5, which is the 5th in a series, it's the Volume 5, of science fiction and fantasy short stories by authors whom I interviewed on my podcast, The World Shapers. And so this is a good time to mention that podcast at theworldshapers.com, or you can find it on my YouTube channel, which is at just youtube.com/EdwardWillett. You will find interviews with these fine gentlemen quite recently, and just this week there was a new one where I interviewed a fellow named Art Bell, who is not the one who was the kind of infamous, strange talk radio host. He died. I did not interview him. This is another guy with the same name, but also interesting. He was the guy who created the Comedy Channel when he worked at HBO, launched it, and then later as president of Court TV, he kind of made it what it was. So, and now he's written a thriller, so that's why I talked to him. So you'll find a lot of different authors on there, but I do interview my own. Coming up then later on, we have, I have a book coming out called Fireboy. It's a young adult fantasy novel that'll be out in July. In June, there's a new science fiction novel from an Ottawa author named Ryan Melsom. It's called Gods of a New World, and it's about all the most incredibly wealthy people in the world using AI to basically turn themselves into gods. I don't know if there's something there you can find in current events or not. I don't know. Yeah, looking forward to that one. There's a couple of reprints coming up. There's one by James Bow called The Night Girl, which is a fantasy novel set in Toronto, which was in the news when it came out originally because he put the CN Tower on the cover, and the CN Tower people said, you cannot use an image of the CN Tower unless we say you can use an image of the CN Tower. And eventually they had to say, well, okay, yeah, you can. But it's still on the cover, but it's much smaller in the new cover. And then there is another literary reprint, another short fiction collection, Waiting for the Piano Tuner to Die by Harry Richards, another Saskatoon author. And then this fall, I have 2 more literary books coming out. I have Lynn Sorstad's first poetry collection in 6 years, First Light, Last Light. That's coming out in the fall. And also a short fiction collection by Betty Jane Hegerat, who's from Calgary. It's called Elephants in the Room. Plus a reprint of my own fantasy novel, Mage Bane, written as New York Change. So as you can see, it's a busy year for Shadowpaw Press. And it was an even busier year last year. This is me slowing down, actually, this year compared to last year. So thank you very much for coming out. Again, books are for sale over there. Dave is right there, Dwayne is right there. They will sign books. I don't know if you're going to set up somewhere to do that, but just be around. And if you'd like to talk to them about their stories and where some of this came from, we can do that. Unless you want to do questions and answers.
Let's just talk.
Yeah. So thank you very much for attending this book launch. And, you know, it even has live music in the background. So there you go. Thank you. Okay. I need my chair. Possibly another beer if I could get it. Hello. Hopefully with plastic. I can do a very limited amount of cash.
I got plastic.
Let me just get this turned on. Oh, that's right. Which one? All right. Are you taking one of each?
Yeah.
Okay. Check the price, I forgot. $22.99 and $34.99. That's it. Hardcovers are expensive. It's been a while since I used this. I just put it in as $229.93. Would you like me to change that?
I don't want to pay that.
Try that again. I've forgotten how to do a second one on the same. Yeah. No, actually, I want this. Oh, okay, sorry. It disconnected from the Wi-Fi. That's what the problem is. So I'll just have to get It's connected to my home network.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do it this way.
What's the total for 2 of them?
The free Wi-Fi here is not extending into this room, and for whatever reason